woman spent 1:45 in the morning inside a forest camp she doesn't recognize. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know if she will ever leave. And then, in the darkness, gunfire, not from her captors, but for her. 29 days after she was taken from her own shop, Esther Chinedu was about to be rescued. This is the story of how it started and what it reveals about the machinery of kidnapping in Nigeria today. So here's the question worth asking. In a country where kidnapping has become a booming, semi-organized industry, what does it actually take to get one victim back alive? And why do so few cases end this way? Let's walk through what happened. On Tuesday, July the 28th, in Amasoma, a community in the southern Ijaw area of Bayelsa State, a group of men walked into Esther's phone shop pretending to be customers. It was a setup. The moment she let her guard down, they pulled out guns, forced her into a vehicle, drove to a riverside, and ferried her by boat through multiple stops into the depth of Ogumbri Forest, a remote stretch of terrain in the South Ijaw area. Her daughter and another woman in the shop were left behind, spared, while Esther disappeared into the waterways. Her husband was hundreds of kilometers away in Abia State that morning, buying mattresses, completely unaware his life had just changed. The call started around 8 a.m. By the time he understood what was happening, police had already deployed patrol teams to his home. What followed was nearly a month of psychological warfare disguised as negotiation. To understand why this case matters, you have to understand the environment it happened in. Bayelsa sits in Nigeria's Niger Delta, a region historically associated with militancy tied to oil resources, but increasingly, like much of the country, being pulled into a different kind of crisis, kidnapping as pure, organized commerce. Nationally, researchers estimate Nigeria pays out trillions of naira in ransom over recent years, with millions of individual incidents recorded. Bayelsa's terrain, a maze of creeks, rivers, and dense forests, makes it particularly difficult for security forces to police and particularly easy for kidnappers to disappear into. Now let's analyze what actually happened during the negotiation, because the pattern here is almost textbook. The first ransom call came from Esther's own phone, demanding 2 million naira split across 2 accounts. Her husband, grabbing together everything he had, sent 300,000 naira. Then the kidnappers pulled a classic escalation tactic. They switched accounts and abruptly raised the demand to 100 million naira. When he insisted he couldn't pay, they dropped it into 20 million. Still impossible. The negotiation dragged on for days, with demand shifting to 3 million. Then another 1.5 million paid. Then 3.5 million more promised for her release. In total, the family paid out roughly 1.8 million naira, and the kidnappers kept asking for more regardless. This is where the evidence becomes critical, because while the family negotiated, police were building a separate track entirely. According to the Commissioner of Police, Ajao Adewale, the command received a distress call around 7 p.m. on the day of the abduction and immediately activated its intelligence network, combining digital tracking with local sources to trace the kidnappers' movement and follow their ransom communications. Officers from the Crime Response Squad, working alongside the Federal Criminal Investigation Unit and the Marine Department, relocated to Ogumbri Forest 5 days before the final operation, enduring difficult river conditions to close in undetected. At around 1:45 in the morning, they struck the camp directly, rescuing Esther unharmed and arresting one suspect on the spot, a 33-year-old man from the Akemfa 1 community, who has since confessed and detailed how the gang scouted her shop and identify her as an unprotected target. It's worth pausing here to present this from more than one angle. On one hand, this is a genuine security success story, a distress call, weeks of coordinated intelligence work, a dangerous river-based operation, and a victim recovered alive and unharmed. That's not nothing. In a country where the vast majority of kidnapping cases never end in arrest. On the other hand, this case also exposes exactly how little protection exists before an abduction happens. Esther was targeted specifically because, in the words of the police commissioner, the kidnappers assessed that she was not sufficiently protected. That's not an isolated judgment call by criminals. It is a reflection of how thin security presence is across entire regions, leaving ordinary shop owners to fend for themselves until something goes catastrophically wrong. So what does this mean going forward? For Esther's family, the ordeal leaves lasting scars. Her husband described having to keep their children away from home for safety and struggling to explain his son's simple, repeated question of where his mother had gone. For Bayelsa more broadly, the commissioner has vowed continued operations against criminal networks in the state, with backing from the state government. But the broader pattern across Nigeria suggests this will remain a cycle. Rescues like this one offer hope, even as the underlying conditions that make kidnapping profitable in the first place remains largely unaddressed. In the end, Esther's story is being told because it has the ending most victims never get. She came home, but for every rescue like this, there are countless other families still negotiating in the dark, still wiring money they don't have, still waiting for a phone call that may never come. That's the real story behind the headline. Not just one woman's rescue, but the quiet reminder that in Nigeria today, survival often still comes down to luck, timing, and how fast the right people can move before it's too late. I am Cassie Tony.